Hello and welcome back. This is our Do Not Draft list. This was a very successful list that me and Al put together. This list is both our thoughts and feelings in this list. Obviously, we're targeting players that are very high on the ADP list as it stands as of today. And these are the players that we will not be touching, and that is just a fact. We won't go anywhere near these guys. Some of these people that we're going to mention will be on this list for the second time in 2 years. But we don't want to go with always the obvious candidates, but we will now give you that list. I'm going to start off with a guy who is returning onto the list for this year. I'll start with Dez Bryant. Actually, is another do not draft a player. His current ADP is 18. That means he's got to return you 180 points value. We think with the schedule that is ahead of Dallas, and Al's a big Dallas fan, with the situation that Dallas face themselves in, with some of the corners that they've got to face, as well as the schedule, and a few other factors where we didn't feel that Dak Prescott would force the ball downfield. We got a feeling that Dez will not return anywhere near his ADP value. We were right last year, and we have a feeling we're going to be right this year. Another player we had no option but to put on this list, currently sitting at ADP 37, is Travis Kelce. Now, the tight end is a great tight end. We have no doubt that the guy will return you value, but you're asking now for round 3 equivalent value in a large league. So you're looking at a value of 160 fantasy points. No tight end last year got over 138, and that was Kelce. It's asking a lot to assume that he can make another big leap up this year. In that offense, we suspect he will have a similar year to what he did this year, but we don't think there's that much room for improvement, and certainly not enough to warrant you picking a tight end this early in a draft. So we will avoid him, I'm afraid, at all costs. We like him, but we just don't think it's worth it at that point. Another player who falls onto the list this year is Eddie Lacy. His current ADP value is 49. We believe that the Seattle Seahawks, as we suggested a couple of weeks ago, and it's being talked about a lot more now coming through from their camp, is that they are going to be dividing the load up fairly evenly. There is a lot of talk about who's actually going to get what by who, and although Eddie Lacy factors in this means that the ADP at 49 means he's around 4 target. He's actually pretty close. If you start thinking about this logically, he's pretty close to round 3 value. That's a huge ask. I mean, he's just inside round 4 at the moment. That's 140 fantasy points. He could easily move inside to 160. We don't think he can give you anywhere near that value back, and we are avoiding this mixed backfield as much as we can. I also think what caps his value a lot this year is the return of Russell Wilson, and the fact that Russell Wilson will be able to use his legs at full steam ahead. And I think Russell Wilson moves back into a top 5 QB for this year, and that will limit the upside of the running game there in Seattle quite dramatically, leaving Eddie Lacy, I'm afraid, in a bad spot. And we already know the issues that were hanging over Eddie Lacy last year with the diet concerns. And although he's been receiving some rewards for getting under their weights that they've asked him to do, I have huge concerns over Eddie Lacy. At the top, another one at the top of this list, Todd Gurley at 19, massively concerns me. That ADP is very high. He hasn't gone anywhere near his value since 2015 when he came in as a rookie and really delivered for us. We've got him on the bust list. He needs to return 180 fantasy points. This is the Rams team. This is the team that has been going backwards the last few years, not forwards. Yes, there are some signs of life. We have a coaching staff that I think will turn the ship around, but this is a tanker. NFL teams are tankers. They often, and when we say tankers, we should talk about the Jets. But when we talk about the Rams, really, we should look at the fact the reality is they only won 4 games last year. He didn't look himself. There was a lot of 8-man fronts he faced. I think they're going to face that all again. There was no explosiveness from Gurley. I think these are signs of a player that is perhaps already just not going to return any kind of value. I think he could return 40 points less value than 180 quite easily, and it could be far worse. So I'm avoiding at all costs in all league sizes that I'm involved in for this season. Now, T.Y. Montgomery, as I previously said, is a project player. There are a lot of concerns over T.Y. Montgomery. I mean, first of all, this is Green Bay. There are so many factors at play here. First of all, he faces a very serious challenge from Jamal Williams, which we've spoke about previously. On top of that, this is Green Bay. The weather turns nasty quite quickly once you go into October, and it totally changes the kind of running game that you can actually get there on home games. If you look at the schedule that Green Bay have got, they're going to face some pretty interesting competition outside this year in October, November and December. I have huge concerns over T.Y. Montgomery, and again, you're asking for some serious upside here. Going at 53 ADP means that you have got to get round 3 value for this guy. I don't think that's there. I'm avoiding at all costs, and I'm urging you to be very wary of drafting a player like this. As much as I know there are a lot of Green Bay fans out there when you're drafting, it's very difficult not to get caught up in the hoorah of drafting Green Bay players. Just err away from this player and just have some reservations over what he can deliver for you. There are probably better candidates around him. Christian McCaffrey at 38 has topped almost all our lists this year in terms of busts, actually. He finds his way onto this list even as a rookie, though we've got no metrics to read him on in the NFL. And this is based on a number of factors. One that Al raised previously about how few running backs, how few wide receiver rookies coming into the league actually succeed and deliver the numbers you expect. We think Christian McCaffrey is a round peg in a square hole. I really don't think it's the right fit. I think it takes time for a team to change the offensive line set to make them more downward focused. I think he's not going to be the kind of between the tackle kind of runner that they normally are used to using. They need to get him out onto the fringes, and I think with the way the NFL works and the way that he operates spy players, I think Christian McCaffrey's upside is hugely limited. At 38, we're asking for a huge amount of production here year one that probably just simply is not there, and the expectation is very high indeed. And I actually think it's climbing. I mean, when you start looking at the ADP list using Fantasy Pros here for Christian McCaffrey, he's been climbing 8 points in less than a week. Eight positions he's moved up to. He's moved up from round 4 now, inside round 3. This is a worrying trend because I think it's going to continue to climb as the hype train, and it is coming, is going to keep pushing some of these rookies up. So it won't surprise me that he gets closer and closer to round 2 quality, and it's just simply undraftable, really. And I would advise you to swerve around this player. Here's a guy I really didn't think would ever make this list, but he has to make the list for a few reasons. This is Bilal Powell. Now, when the season started, well, off-season wise started, I really had high hopes for him. I was thinking about which player can benefit most from the off-season changes, which guy could come in and take the role over. And I think me and Al were pretty much in agreement when we looked at him and thought, whoa, this could be a sneaky player here. But as times wore along, and it hasn't been a huge amount of time, the Jets are clearly in tanking mode, and they've decided that they are literally just getting rid of players left, right. So we've just seen Decker leave. We've seen other players leave. I don't even know what their passing game looks like. I mean, really, it looks dire. I think other teams can shut down the running game. I think there's already talk in the camp about it being a split backfield between Bilal Powell and 40. And in fact, 40 may be the favourite again to take the low. I really couldn't care less what the numbers are. What I'm looking at here is this is a guy inside the first 4 rounds. And that massively worries me because he's not going to return you that value. So Bilal Powell has to be on my avoid list, and I guess he'll be on yours as well. Another player for similar reasons is Spencer Ware. We've talked about Spencer Ware. We think he faces a serious challenge from Kareem Hunt. I think it's worse than that as well because he's not going to get used in third down work. I think with the advent of the coach getting a big contract extension and them getting rid of the GM, I got a feeling, I really do, that Kareem Hunt's going to work his way into the lineup much quicker than I anticipated. And I think Spencer Ware ends up filling in the kind of Noel Davis kind of role, filler player really I see for him ahead. You're asking a lot to drafting at 47, and with any kind of real belief that he's going to take hold. I don't care how serious a Kansas fan you are. I think you can see the writings on the wall here. This is a serious threat to those numbers, and he's certainly undraftable in my mind. Keenan Allen makes his way back onto our do not draft list. Just too glass, I'm afraid. As much as there is elite upside here, at 41, I cannot draft Keenan Allen under any circumstances. I see nothing but, I'll see 3 or 4 great games this year, I'm sure, and then we'll see a period of time where he's been injured again. And he has that awful, unfortunate, reoccurring kind of injuries that just linger, and I'm afraid he has so many. I was looking at, it's going back a while, it was going back about a month and a half now. I looked at a list and was sharing this with our doctor friend and talking about Keenan Allen, and it was literally him looking at me and going, just do not draft. I mean, it's the same advice he was gave last year, it's the same advice we're going to give you this year. as much as we like him, we can't put him on any team because we just think he's going to let us down. It's an early draft pick to waste. You can't waste him. You don't want to be in a situation that I face sometimes when you've overthought a player and put them on because you believe in them, and they don't work out, even though the evidence is there that it is a bad move to have drafted him in the first place. This is one of those players. Now, Dez Bryant, we do love Dez Bryant, but he works his way. He worked his way onto our list, as I said at the beginning of this podcast. I just want to bring him up one more time, if I may. Here is just very quickly to add one more thing about Dez Bryant and all these players actually on this list. We do like a lot of them. We do like. It's just that they're too high a value. And Dez Bryant case, as I said early on in this video, I can't trust a guy that high up with the injuries he's had, with his age concerns, with the schedule, with everything else. It'd just be bad advice to recommend. So that's why a lot of the time we talk about these players. Here's the shocking one for you all. This is a player we put on who's got the highest ADP of the lot of them. And he's the player that I am literally swerving in every single draft, and that is LeSean McCoy. I'm not going to touch him. Now, here's the flip side of this, okay? So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about him, and I just want to give a little case for him first. Obviously, he was phenomenal in 2016. We know that. We're not doubting it. In fact, he was part of several championship teams that I looked at that people had him on. There's no doubt about it. But did you notice how he had a lot of niggles facing him last year? He's 29 going into this season. He's got some. He was out of games to the halfway point, then miraculously found fantasy points in the second half, which is normally a good sign for a running back. But I think all the factors point towards a serious downturn of production and potentially a very high risk of injury. And when I get these feelings, and sometimes it's a gut feeling, sometimes it's observation of tape, but when I put them together, when I've ignored my own advice, is when I've faced the worst situations I've ever faced in fantasy. So for this year, I'm advising you all that this guy makes him onto our list. We do not believe he is going to return the 200 fantasy points you need. And before anybody sort of says, hang on a minute, he had a great year last year, I just want to remind everybody of something very important here. Remember what happened in 2015 for running backs. These are players you could bank on. Jamal Charles, Peterson. There was such a large list, and what happened? The entire first round, bar one player, was of relevance. Running backs until last year made a resurgence. We know the truth of it. Do you know, I'm going to share that fact with you one more time because it's worth knowing in this video, that literally 50% of the running backs chosen round one will fail. And we're highlighting one we really believe in that just will not give you the production. Maybe we're a year wrong with McCoy. Maybe he gives you one more year. But would you take a chance on a guy that you feel is going to fall over? Or would you rather take someone who's a little bit safer? Because fantasy seasons can be ruined by mistakes. Maybe you're more ballsy than us and take him. I wish you the best. But if you do go down this route of McCoy, you must take Jonathan Williams. You will get him for free in a lot of leagues. He's very cheap, actually. But make sure you back up McCoy with the backup, because that's the safest way of getting around the biggest injury risk of all. And that is why he leads our do not draft list. We wish you well. We look forward to your thoughts and feelings. We know we will not be liked by everybody, but we want to know yours. Thank you.